The NFL draft is in 1 week. Let's break down my mock draft 3.0 and discuss all the new changes that have been made to this version. Before we jump into it, hope you all are having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shumake, and this is the Shumake Take. Hope y'all are doing well. Before we jump into the mock draft, the actual mock draft, a couple things I want to talk about. Number one, there's a reason why this mock draft came out or is out later than it is normally, which I have been bringing them out at the beginning of the week compared to now this is coming out late in the week. Well, as you know, the Browns had signed Joe Flacco over the past weekend, which put Sheduer Sanders' draft stock in jeopardy to where it's no longer a guarantee he's going to be a top 3 pick in the draft. And now it's more likely that he's going to fall out of the top 10 and fall a long, long way down. So I had made my mock draft on Sunday. Not long after that, later that evening, came out that Joe Flacco went to the Browns, and my entire mock draft was, at that point, screwed. And so I decided to make a video talking about Sheduer Sanders and where he could actually fall if he ends up falling. And then I decided I was going to redo the mock draft with that thought in mind, which if you want to check out that Sheduer Sanders video, I'll throw a card right there up in the top right corner. So going into the mock draft, actually, what has changed? Well, other than Sheduer Sanders falling, a lot of the mid-round from picks 11 to 20 and the late first round goes back to more one of what it looked like in mock draft 1.0, where I reevaluated and re-looked into, okay, not only what do these teams need, right? What are the players available to them at positions of need? But also, I wanted to look at like individual sources from the team, like, beat writers for the team, right? Or writers that are so really associated with the team, not just like the outside analysts like ESPN, for example, right? And thinking about, okay, who are the people that are most in tune with these teams and their organizations? Who do they think they're going to draft? And so I went into it, kind of reevaluated everything. And so now I have a more confident, this is my most confident mock draft. Not saying that it's by any means close to what should actually happen. I have no idea. No one, not even the top analysts, have any idea what's going to happen in the first round of this draft. It's bizarre. It's so bizarre. It's going to be so exciting when the first round happens in a week. But a lot of it ended up going back to, like I said, into 1.0. So you're going to see a lot of players return back into the first round. Well, not really, but you're going to see a lot of players that were mocked in 1.0, they're going to go into a very similar spot that I had them at the beginning. So there is that. And the one thing that's notable is that the run on edge rushers I have at the end of the first has stopped. 3 are still going in the bottom 5, but they're not in a row. They're spaced out a little bit. I mean, I think 2 go back to back, but then 1 goes a little bit earlier. But reevaluating every team's major needs, right? It ended up just folding out where, okay, some of these teams with edge rusher, the edge rusher class is so deep that maybe they address a more immediate need on their team than addressing maybe drafting the best player other than that, if that makes sense. I probably didn't say that right. Anyways, those are all the big changes that have happened. And one more thing, trading. I decided, my first mock draft before the Sheduer Sanders and Joe Flacco situation kind of ruined it, I had a trade in my mock draft. But in this one, for the new one, I took it out because ultimately with trades, I can't predict a trade. I simply can't predict it. I don't see a trade happening really unless it's at the bottom of the draft. But I will say this, there is still potential, but this is really feeling like a draft where teams are going to stick and pick and just take the best player available or pick where they need a player. So there's not a lot of value to trade up and trade down. These prospects are not very diverse in talent and ceiling, right? Compared to each other, it's not a very diverse class of talent. It's a lot of players that are really close to each other. So it's really seeming like there's not going to be a lot of trades. But I will say this, the Falcons and the Steelers are 2 teams that I would look out for in this draft for a trade. The Falcons, along with some other teams in that mix, have only 5 picks in the draft. So if they want to accumulate more picks, they could potentially trade down if someone calls and wants to trade up for somebody. Which leads to my next team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They could trade up for Sheduer Sanders if it seems like one of these quarterback needy teams at the top are looking to trade or not looking to trade, are looking to take one of those quarterbacks like New Orleans. New Orleans Saints are heavily rumored to get Sheduer Sanders. Now with Derek Carr's injury to his shoulder, potentially taking him out of 2025 for the entire season. So that's something to keep an eye on. But also, some of these teams could be looking to trade back into the first round for a quarterback if, say, Sheduer Sanders does go in the top 10 ultimately, and a team like the Steelers can't get him. So look for something like that. Look for a couple leapfrogs at the end of the draft. Potentially, that's where it's most likely to happen. But even then, there's probably going to be one or two at the max. I don't envision there being more than 3 trades in the first round of this draft going on Thursday. But all that being aside, let's jump right into it. So I kind of glazed over the top 5 in my previous mock drafts. We'll have to talk about it again because things have changed and also new developments have came out with some of these prospects. But let's just start from the top. Number 1, I still have Cam Ward going to the Tennessee Titans. And if it wasn't confirmed now, it's practically confirmed because if you guys didn't know, Cam Ward went on YouTube on live streaming Fortnite and said some very telling things about his top players in the NFL, where he said the top 2 running backs in the NFL are Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, 2 Titans running backs. The top 4 wide receivers are Calvin Ridley, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and then he put Treylon Burks, which if those of you that don't know Treylon Burks, 2022 first round pick, wide receiver out of Arkansas. That's the receiver we took after we traded A.J. Brown. I say we because I'm a Titans fan if you guys didn't know. Anyways, he's been one of the biggest draft busts in Titans history, and he's out there saying that. And then he says the best head coach in the NFL is Brian Callahan, the Titans head coach, and then said a couple other things talking about the Titans and kind of pretty much pandering to them and hyping his teammates and his coaches up. So, yeah, if it's not confirmed that Cam Ward's a Titan, well, there you go. You can see what you can go look up the clips online right now. They're exploding. So go take a look. It's very interesting. He's got a dry sense of humor. So the way he's saying it's just hilarious. Like it's no big deal. And you know what? It reflects in his play too. He's very nonchalant, calm, cool, collected. And that's the stuff I really like in a prospect. But that's besides the point. Cam Ward is still going to the Titans. Book it at this point. Number 2, our first big change. The Browns. I don't have them drafting Sheduer Sanders. I have them taking Abdul Carter, the edge rusher, out of Penn State. I kind of teeter-tottered between Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. And the more I think about it, I think the Browns would like to take Abdul Carter more than Travis Hunter. Because when you think about the AFC North and you think about the Cleveland Browns, if they can't get their quarterback or if they don't like a quarterback at the top like Sheduer Sanders, go get a pass rusher that helps bother other quarterbacks within your division. Thinking about Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, right? And then whoever ends up playing for the Steelers, right? If it's a rookie quarterback, having 2 great pass rushers, Myles Garrett and then Abdul Carter, who's really talented. I'm not saying he's great, but he has the potential to be great. But you have 2 potentially elite edge rushers where you got those 2 guys. You can make Joe Burrow's life uncomfortable, Lamar Jackson's life uncomfortable. And for the Steelers, whether it's ultimately Aaron Rodgers or a rookie quarterback, 2 really good edge rushers is going to make that guy's day really, really hard. So if you can't get that top quarterback prospect in the draft that you really, really love and think will change your franchise and is worth the pick, take the best player available, a guy who's an edge rusher that's going to make the lives of other quarterbacks in your division very much difficult and help you remain competitive in that aspect. So that's why I have the Browns taking Abdul Carter. Number 3, I still have Travis Hunter going to the New York Giants. This is the pick that I think is going to 100% happen right underneath Cam Ward going to Tennessee. At this point, I mean, Travis Hunter, I've explained it more and more to this point. He is a perfect fit for the New York Giants because they need another corner. They could use another wide receiver, and he can play both. And he came out yesterday saying that he will retire if he cannot play both positions. And I saw a lot of people, like, this is kind of a tangent. I saw people giving him flack saying, oh, he's arrogant. What are you talking about? I am so sorry. My dog is barking. Even he's upset that people are trying to trash on Travis Hunter for his comments, right? But anyways, Travis Hunter, he wants to play both. And him threatening to retire, saying that he will retire, threatening to retire if he can't play both positions. At this point, I mean, you're going to play him at both positions. If he is that adamant about playing it, guess what? That's the mentality that I love in a football player. He also had a quote saying that he sleeps for 8 hours a day and then has 16 hours to focus on football. And some people call him arrogant for that. And it's like, what are you reaching for, bro? Like, can you not like about Travis Hunter? Not only is he a rare talent, exceptional athlete, right? And also, he works really, really, really hard. He's great in the media. He is all about football. He loves football. There is no reason to not like Travis Hunter for who he is as a person or a player. There's literally nothing. Remember the guy in Colorado State that injured him and got him really hurt? Yeah, he forgave that guy and sat down and made friends with that guy. That says a lot about who Travis Hunter is as a person. So anyone who's trying to like trash him for some of his comments about how bad he wants to play wide receiver and DB are just completely baseless. But back to the case in point, Travis Hunter going to the New York Giants is a perfect fit. I think they'll use him in both offense and defense, and we might actually see him play a bunch of snaps more than some people kind of speculated than before compared to now. Moving on to number 4, the New England Patriots with Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter off the board. I had a lot of places they could go. I talked about this in my Sheduer Sanders video, but I saw them potentially going wide receiver. I could see them going defensive tackle, right? Mason Graham out of Michigan. You think about Mike Vrabel and having Jeffrey Simmons in Tennessee. That's a link, right? That's a connection. But ultimately, I think the Patriots could go Will Campbell here, the tackle out of LSU, if Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are both off the board. Look, Mike Vrabel loves his offensive linemen. He took offensive linemen in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft in his time in Tennessee so many times, almost in every draft. We had an offensive lineman drafted in the first 3 rounds, almost every time. So getting a guy like Will Campbell in here, despite the fact that some people think he's a guard, guess what? The Patriots need offensive line talent. They need anybody and everybody that can get in here and help this offensive line get better and protect Drake May, who is their second quarterback out of North Carolina going into their second season. And so not only does it make sense for Mike Vrabel, it makes sense for the Patriots, it makes sense for protecting Drake May, and ultimately, Will Campbell, I think you can try him out at left tackle because the Patriots, they're still building. And here's a perfect time to get experimental and really see what Will Campbell can do. Not to mention, here's another facet to this. The pass rushers in the AFC East are not A tier. There's no A tier pass rushers in the AFC East. You look at the Buffalo Bills. Greg Russo, who just got paid. Really good pass rusher, but he's not an elite pass rusher. Not the top guys like a Mason or Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, for example, right? And also, you look at the top pass rusher for the New York Jets. What's his name? I mean, Quentin Williams, sure, but he's not going to go against Will Campbell. I'm talking about Will McDonald, for example, right? Good player, but not an elite guy. And then for the, oh my gosh, it's Bill. The Miami Dolphins, their top edge rushers are Jalen Phillips and Chop Robinson. Jalen Phillips can't stay healthy, and Chop Robinson's going into year 2. So there's a lot of pass rushers that aren't top tier where Will Campbell can really get a good shot and see what he's made of at tackle. Because if he can perform well against these guys, okay, then there's a chance that their tackle will be his position in the NFL. There is some pass rushers he's going up against, like Myles Garrett. He will go up against Max Crosby. He's going to go up against a couple elite pass rushers. And I will tell you this, if he plays at tackle, he is going to struggle against those pass rushers. There's no sugarcoating that. I'm saying that right now. That is going to be a fact. So I will be more interested in watching Will Campbell go up against the pass rushers in his own division and other pass rushers on other teams in the Patriots schedule, which there's not a lot of teams on their schedule that has great elite pass rushers at the top of the NFL. So this will be a really good year for Will Campbell to really get a shot at tackle and see what he can do against the tier 2 and tier 3 rushers in the league. And if he can hold up against them, well, boom, you get your franchise left tackle. And if he can't, then all the things about him being a guard are confirmed. You kick him into guard and he has all pro potential there. So no reason to not pick Will Campbell here. Although there's a couple other players they could go, but I think this is the best option for them at this point. Number 5 overall, I still have the Jaguars drafting Mason Graham out of Michigan. While this could very much change, and if Mason Graham goes to the Patriots, the Jaguars could be a potential trade down candidate if there's someone that wants to trade up. I doubt it, but that could be something to look out for. But right now, I still have Mason Graham going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Once again, they need defensive tackle help, and honestly, it's just their defensive line should be one of their best parts going into the season this year. And for a part that other team that underwhelms so much, there's literally no reason to take the best available player here at a huge position of need. It's like peanut butter and jelly. Mason Graham to the defense needs a spot to go play defensive tackle. He's a top player. And guess what? The Jaguars need a defensive tackle. They go right together. Not much more analysis past that, unfortunately, but that is still would be a good pick. Number 6, I still have Ashton Jeanty going to the Raiders, despite the fact that Sheduer Sanders is still on the board in this mock draft. Now, if Sheduer Sanders is on the board at 6, out of any team in the top 10 not named the New Orleans Saints, the Raiders have the best chance to pick Sheduer Sanders, because Sheduer Sanders was mocked to the Raiders a lot at the beginning of the draft process. A lot of teams had him going number 6 to the Raiders, and now with Sheduer Sanders probably inevitably falling at this point, more than likely, Sheduer Sanders could go here to number 6. But ultimately, I still have them going Ashton Jeanty, because with the contract of Geno Smith, they don't have to draft a quarterback right away, and running back is a more immediate need where, okay, the Raiders can take the best player in the draft. They have Geno Smith. They'll have Ashton Jeanty, then Brock Bowers, Trey Tucker, right, Jacoby Myers. So they have weapons. And their offensive line, while it could use some work, you can get some guys in round 2. Maybe Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State, right? Could be their early second round for the Raiders. So it's very much possible that they just take Ashton Jeanty and go for the best player available here, which is what I have them doing. Number 7, to the Jets, I have them taking Armand Membo, the tackle out of Missouri. With Will Campbell being off the board, Armand Membo is the next best offensive lineman, in my opinion. So the Jets get a guy. They need a right tackle. He could kick into guard if he really can't do it at tackle. But Armand Membo, love his length, love his size. Well, not his length, but I love his size. His length is okay, just not ideal for a tackle. That's not like kind of iffy with Will Campbell per se. It's a little bit better. I think he has like 34.5-inch arms compared to Will Campbell's 33. But for Armand Membo, the Jets need an offensive tackle. The Jets, going for Armand Membo makes a lot of sense to me. I almost am certain they're going to go offensive line in this draft class. I don't see why they would not. So Armand Membo getting the second best line prospect available. There you go. Armand Membo to the Jets. Number 8, I have the Panthers drafting Mikael Williams, the edge rusher out of Georgia. For a while, I had Jalen Walker going here because of his versatility and what he could bring to the Panthers defense, but I thought about some things. The Panthers defense was one of the worst in the NFL last year. I think it was the worst in the NFL last year. And a lot of that has to do with coaching. A lot of it. Not just a lack of talent, but a lack of coaching. And the more I thought about it, as much as I would love Jalen Walker to go to the Panthers, could the Panthers utilize a tweener like Jalen Walker correctly? Could they get Jalen Walker to be a really good inside linebacker, right, where he primarily most played at Georgia, and then, put him in pass rush situations, right, occasionally? Could they get the most out of a player that can do both? I'm not sure about that. So take a bona fide edge rusher in Mikael Williams, someone that's not a tweener anywhere, someone that's got high motor, someone that was from a championship program at Georgia. And considering that they need defense, I believe they are going defense. And outside of Jalen Walker, they need an edge rusher, and Mikael Williams is the second best edge rusher prospect in this draft behind Abdul Carter. So it makes a ton of sense here. I love the fit for the Panthers. It makes a ton of sense. That's why I have him going number 8. Number 9, Sheduer Sanders is not in New Orleans. I have him slipping outside the top 10. And I still have the Saints drafting Tetaroa McMillan out of Arizona. If the Saints don't draft Sheduer Sanders, this is going to tell us two things. And it's obvious, but Derek Carr is either he's going to play, or if he doesn't play, they're going to roll with Spencer Rattler. And with Kellen Moore and the quarterback guru that he is, I could see them going with Spencer Rattler, potentially seeing what he has. He's got talent, right? And you look at what Kellen Moore's offense looked like in Philly where he came from before when he was the offensive coordinator and won the Super Bowl, he had a physical X receiver in A.J. Brown and a Z receiver like Devontae Smith. Tetairoa McMillan would be his A.J. Brown, and Chris Olave would be his Z, right? So you have those two guys. It's a similar mold, and then you have Calvin Kamara in the backfield, and maybe you draft another running back to fill and play a backup role, and boom, you have a similar formula to what the Eagles ran in their offense in Philadelphia. So having Tetairoa McMillan available, it's a good wide receiver prospect. And once again, the Saints wide receiver core was decimated with injuries. And a guy like Tetairoa McMillan played in a ton of games, didn't get injured a lot, if at all, in college, if I remember correctly. So having a guy that not only has talent, can fit the scheme that Kellen Moore could try to implement in New Orleans, but also he's a durable player, and the Saints need a durable receiver. So Tetairoa McMillan fits the bill right here. And then number 10, I still have Omarion Hampton going to the Chicago Bears. Once again, the Bears are in a weird spot because the players that are available at positions of need, if they were to draft them at 10, it would be a massive reach. And Omarion Hampton would fit here because Ben Johnson likes to use two running backs, how he did it in Detroit. And the thing is, if it's a reach to draft a player at a position of need at number 10, take a player that, while Omarion Hampton most certainly is not the best player available, that is a player that Ben Johnson's going to use. If you're going to spend a premium pick on a player, you better at least have a plan how to use them. And Omarion Hampton will get a ton of snaps in Chicago as a rookie if he is drafted 10th overall to them, which is why I have them going there. With a Ben Johnson and a scheme fit, it makes too much sense right now. And if they don't draft Omarion Hampton, I think they could potentially trade down if there is a team that wants to trade up for a player, maybe just outside the top 10 to go into the top 10 if something changes. But right now, I don't have them trading down or moving, so they're going to take a player like Omarion Hampton, who they're going to use a lot, and plug and play into their offense early on and give them a ton of snaps. Number 11, the slide stops for Jalen Walker. I have the 49ers taking him, and the reason why Jalen Walker is here at 11 is because the coaching. Compared to Carolina, where their coaching was an issue last year on the defensive side of the ball, with Robert Saleh coming back for the 49ers, I expect this defense to have some improvement in certain spots. And Jalen Walker is a guy where, oh yeah, he might be a tweener, but I have more faith in Robert Saleh in San Francisco to utilize Jalen Walker properly and get the most out of him with what he can do compared to Carolina, who they just need a more bona fide player that's ready to go right away and is set at one position and develop him at that one position. Where Jalen Walker, he's going to need a little bit more development, but he has a higher ceiling. So going to the 49ers where they need help on defense, this is a player that I feel comfortable being developed and realizing his full potential because he's going to the right situation with good coaching. Number 12, the Dallas Cowboys are one of our first big changes of this mock draft. I have Luther Burden, the wide receiver out of Missouri, going to Jerry's World. This one I had thought about and given some thought because originally I had them going offensive lineman. I had them taking Matthew Golden. And the more I reevaluated my wide receiver prospects and how I had them in my head, Matthew Golden's dropped a little bit. Not because, I think Luther Burden's a significantly better prospect. No, I think it's just Matthew Golden doesn't have as high of a ceiling compared to Luther Burden, who probably has the highest ceiling out of these top 4 wide receivers that are projected to go in the first round of this draft class. So, along with that, Luther Burden is a guy who is speedy, he's explosive. Right away, he's going to work in the slot. He can go into a Z receiver role later, right? Because you have CeeDee Lamb on the outside. Jalen Tolbert is a more outside receiver. So you put in Luther Burden. He's fast. He's explosive, which the Cowboys lacked for a big portion of the year. The only places they got it were Rico Dowdle and CeeDee Lamb. That was it. And then Kevontae Turpin on kick returns. But he's not a starting wide receiver in the NFL. So you get a guy like Luther Burden. And also, he apparently has issues with effort and whatnot. And the thing is, Jerry Jones doesn't care about that. He cares about, can you play ball and can you win us games? And Luther Burden has a potential where if you give him the ball early and often, he can run away from defenders. He can take the top off your defense. He can put points on the board. And I think a player like that will be too enticing for a guy like Jerry Jones to pass up at a huge position of need for the Dallas Cowboys. Number 13, I have the Miami Dolphins selecting Kelvin Banks, the tackle out of Texas. Once again, he's back here in Miami, and the more I think about it, the more I actually don't believe that Kelvin Banks could be the Miami Dolphins pick, because with Miami, definitely right now, they need a safety, but the reports have come out that Jalen Ramsey wants out of Miami, and both sides are now have like granted. I can't remember how do I explain this. Either way, Jalen Ramsey has permission to seek a trade. That's how I should say. Yeah, there we go. Anyways, so if Jalen Ramsey gets traded, at that point you have to go defensive back, and you got to just hope Patrick Paul plays well at left tackle and take a shot on him. So while Kelvin Banks, I have him going here. I made this a couple days ago, so before the Jalen Ramsey news popped out, which congratulations, it happened to me again. But at the same time, I still believe Kelvin Banks can go to the Miami Dolphins. They need a stud left tackle, and Kelvin Banks, I think, can be that guy. And some people are like, oh, I think he's more of a guard. The thing is, I think Kelvin Banks is a tackle. The way he can move, I think will compensate enough for his lack of arm length. I think that he can adjust to play tackle in the NFL, and the same argument that I made for Will Campbell can be made for Kelvin Banks. The opponents that they're going up against, there's not a lot of elite pass rushers that they're going up against in 2025. So it's a perfect experience to experiment and see if he can play left tackle. And if he can't, then you just kick him into guard. Just kick him into guard and bam. And if you think he can play right tackle or right guard, then you can move him over there too, potentially, right? I think he played some snaps over there on that side of the ball. Or might be mixing up with another offensive lineman. I could be sure. Someone let me know and correct me in the comments if I'm right or wrong. But Kelvin Banks could be used in Miami and, play well potentially. So I like the pick, but even though that I believe that it's now less likely that he actually goes with the advent of Jalen Ramsey requesting a trade from Miami. Number 14, another one that I'm probably 100% sure is going to happen. Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State, going to the Colts. At this point, there's really not much more saying it. Edge rusher, they could go edge rusher, but they drafted Leatu Latu out of UCLA last year in the first round, so don't want to spend another first-round pick there. Defensive tackle's not a huge need for the Colts, to my understanding, so I could see them maybe not go passing that. Secondary, they could go secondary, but they did just sign Charvarius Ward and also signed Cam Bynum, so they got a lot of money in there, right? They've already put a lot of resources. And Tyler Warren, he's the best tight end prospect in this draft, and they have wide receivers, they got a running game, they need a tight end. Why not complete the offense, get a whole set of weapons around, and let's really see if Anthony Richardson is a franchise quarterback or not. Because you got the receivers, like I said, the running game. Now you add a good tight end that can be a security blanket, can also block, right? Is all good all-around player at that position. So at that point, you have no excuses if you're Anthony Richardson to be bad. Because now if you're bad, you're just bad, and you're going to be away from the Indianapolis Colts going somewhere else. So Tyler Warren at Penn State, love the player. They could use a tight end, and it really will help evaluate if Anthony Richardson is truly the guy. Number 15, another big change. I have the Falcons drafting Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan. This is another one of those picks where I had to really reevaluate what the team and what the writers closely associated with the team are saying about who their team's going to draft. And the Falcons, the more research I did, the more I saw people drafting Will Johnson. If it wasn't an edge rusher, it was Will Johnson out of Michigan. And the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. Look, Raheem Morris, their head coach, is a defensive backs coach. That's what he's known for. So getting a guy like Will Johnson, perfect fit in that scenario. And also, you look at the Falcons' defensive line, they need defensive tackle. They need edge rusher. But they signed Leonard Floyd. They have a couple defensive tackles that are going to be serviceable, I believe. And definitely the more immediate need for the Falcons is corner, where if you got a good corner, like you have AJ Terrell already, and then you add Will Johnson, he stays healthy and plays well. Well, now you're going to have, with a better secondary, that's going to help out your pass rush. That's one of the issues that people didn't talk about with the lack of pass rush in Atlanta last year. Despite the fact that, it was bad in terms of pressure rate, and win rate, the secondary had lapses at times where things were not great and it did not help. But if you can get a player like Will Johnson, he hits, he's elite with AJ Terrell, two outside elite corners, definitely makes a pass rush unit a lot better, because now receivers are being covered for longer, and it's going to allow these pass rushers, even if they're not winning immediately, to at least clean up and get after the quarterback when he scrambles around and tries to buy time. So I like the move. It makes sense. Not to mention, you look at the wide receivers in the NFC South. Tampa has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. The Saints have Chris Olave, and then in this scenario, Tataroa McMillan. And then you look at the Panthers, they have Xavier Legette, right? First round pick. Adam Thielen, savvy, reliable veteran receiver. Each team has two wide receivers of notability. So having two outside corners of notability to go against these guys makes a ton of sense to go after them and shut them down in that spot. Number 16, I have him jumping back into the first round, really far up into the mid-round. Derek Harmon, out of the defensive tackle out of Oregon, going to the Arizona Cardinals at 16. Another one where I did some reevaluation of where people close to the team have them going. And while some people, a lot of them have them going edge rusher, to me, I can't buy it. I simply can't buy it because they paid Josh Sweat. They have Darius Robinson. He's a first-round pick last year out of Missouri. It's just, sure, I can get behind it. I know they technically need an edge rusher, right? Because that group was so bad last year. But they have other positions of need. And while they re-signed, or I guess not re-signed, but they brought back Calais Campbell to their team, and they have Bilal Nichols. So they have two decent defensive tackles, but past that, they don't really have a lot of depth of notability, right? I mean, I'm not a Cardinals fan, so I could be wrong about that, but getting a guy like Derek Harmon, he won't have to be an immediate starter, right? He'll have a year to where he can just be in a rotation, play well, right? He can play some nose tackle on early downs, right? Use his size and his technique to stuff blocks and, fill in gaps, right? And then give you some upside right in the pass rush where, okay, he learns under Calais Campbell. 1 year later, Calais Campbell leaves and Derek Harmon is ready to go and he can be your full-time starter. They need a long-term answer at that spot. And considering Rich Gannon loves, he's a defensive-minded head coach. They got corners. They have an okay situation at linebacker. Go build through the trenches. Go get a defensive tackle that has a lot of upside, very prototypical size and frame, and go see what he can do with the proper development, learning under one of the greatest defensive tackles of our generation in Calais Campbell. Number 17, I have the Bengals still picking Mike Green, the edge rusher out of Marshall. This is another one where I feel more confident that this could be the pick more than another edge rusher. Mike Green is a player, after watching some more tape and looking at some more evaluations, he's a guy that's going to go start right away and potentially play well. He's a great pass rusher, has good moves, great speed, great motor, right? He's got what you want in a pass rusher that can terrorize quarterbacks on a week-to-week basis. The thing is, he needs work in the run game and being a good defender at setting the edge in that spot, but he has the upside to do it. And with Trey Hendrickson and his future in Cincinnati being in the air, I would rather them pick a pass rusher that can go get the quarterback right away. If you can hear somebody talking, I'm so sorry. She's talking pretty loud. It's my mother. But anyways, we're continuing on. Mike Green could be a really good fit for the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 18th overall, I have the Seattle Seahawks selecting Gray Zabel once again out of North Dakota State. In this one, I'm going against the grain apparently, because as much as people love that the Seahawks selecting an offensive lineman, I saw a couple beat writers for the Seattle Seahawks talk about how they just don't draft offensive linemen, and looking at their history, it's true. It's true, all the players they've drafted that weren't offensive linemen in the first round, outside of Charles Cross. And it begs the question of, will they do the same thing again? Well, history tells us, yeah, they'll go a different position. They cannot keep putting off the offensive line. They simply can't. And with Clint Kubiak's system, where he likes to run the football, likes to use tight ends, right? He needs an offensive line that's good to run his system properly. And Gray Zabel's a guy that's going to start right away, play well, whether it's at guard or at center. He can be an anchor for your franchise on the offensive line. And to run Clint Kubiak's system effectively, you're going to need guys like that. I have no qualms about the Seahawks selecting Gray Zabel. I think they need to select a guy like Gray Zabel if it's not another offensive line prospect. If they don't go offensive line in the first round of this draft class, I will be very concerned for what the Seahawks are going to do on offense in 2025, more than I already am as is. Number 19, I have Jahad Campbell going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just like I had him in mock draft 2.0 or 1.0, Jahad Campbell, mostly an inside linebacker, although he can play edge. You can put him in edge packages there, similar to Jalen Walker out of Georgia, and also similar to his former college teammate, Chris Braswell, who the Bucs took in the second round of last year's draft. But Jahad Campbell, definitely going to be more of a linebacker, in my opinion, who can occasionally just line up in edge rush situations if you want an extra blitzer, which would be a perfect scenario for Jahad Campbell. And once again, the Bucs need a linebacker post Lavonte David. He's on a 1-year deal. I don't know how much longer Lavonte David's going to play. Go get a great player, get a great prospect in Jahad Campbell, and go put him behind Lavonte David. Let him not really sit, but let him learn from one of the best of our generation, similar to Derek Harmon in Arizona. And boom, if he hits, you got your next Lavonte David for the next decade. Number 20, his draft slide stops. I have the Broncos selecting Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of Texas, just like I had him going in mock 1.0. So Matthew Golden going to the Broncos makes a lot of sense for me because, look, the Broncos, while definitely they could use a running back more immediately, taking a running back in the first round at this point, I don't like it. I don't think you can get better value somewhere else in a really stacked draft class for running backs. But back to the wide receiver and looking at the offense for Denver, one thing that really held this offense back, the one thing that really slowed this offense down was that they did not have the players at the wide receiver position to consistently make explosive plays. And the Broncos offense last year relied on taking shots, relied on making those explosive plays happen. It's just they did not have the players to do it on a consistent basis. Matthew Golden, while his ceiling is not as high as a Luther Burden or an Emeka Egbuka or Tataroa McMillan, for example, Matthew Golden, his 4.29 40 speed is really, really good. Not to mention, he's a good route runner. He can be used in a lot of different ways. He's versatile, right? He's a guy that will start day one and be a contributor day one, and that's what the Broncos need. They need a guy with speed, with explosiveness that can take the top off of a defense, give it to him on a jet sweep, and let him, take it and run with it, right? While he's not a yards after catch type of guy, that's not a guy that they need to have. They can get a guy in the mid round or the mid draft that can fill that role. Matthew Golden is here to be a deep threat and be a gadget that can give more explosiveness to this Broncos offense. And I think if he were to be drafted here at 20, I think he can give that to him day one and allow Bo Nix to perform even better going into year two. Number 21, his draft slide finally stops. Sheduer Sanders goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is where I ultimately think he will go now, if not the New Orleans Saints. And with the New Orleans Saints, I think they will be more likely to pass on Sheduer Sanders as of right now, although that can always change. But the Steelers, they need a quarterback. Perfect fit there for Sheduer Sanders. Also, they have George Pickens, DK Metcalf. Offensive line is not great, but also, if you want to make that argument, Sheduer Sanders played behind one of the worst offensive lines in all of college football in his time at Colorado. Not to mention Sheduer Sanders' swagger, the way he carries himself, it resonates a lot with the culture and what they're trying to do in Pittsburgh under Mike Tomlin. They have held private workouts, the Steelers and Sheduer Sanders, and so it seems more and more likely now that these two will be coming together on draft night. And I think it would be a great place for Sheduer Sanders to go because he's going to a winning organization, going to a great culture. He's got weapons around you that are good. So Sheduer Sanders going to Pittsburgh could give him a very good chance to succeed and really play well as a rookie in year one there. So I love the pick, and Sheduer Sanders' slide finally stops. Number 22, another pick that really hasn't changed all that much is Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan. I thought about them going defensive tackle here because they need one, but simply put, I mean, Colson Loveland's a better prospect, and you want to add another weapon to help Justin Herbert because the wide receivers, Ladd McConkey is good. Quentin Johnson showed some signs of improvement, but you need a security blanket. Ladd McConkey was that, but he cannot be that all the time, and he also doesn't have the size compared to Colson Loveland where he can move around, get in space, box out defenders, right? He's like a Travis Kelce, for example. He will get out real quick. You can dump it off to him. He can use his size and his physicality to gain extra yards. Colson Loveland, and of course the Michigan connection, it makes too much sense to me. It just makes too much sense. It's too good of a fit for the Chargers. I don't see them passing on Colson Loveland if he's available. If not, they're probably going to go defensive tackle. But definitely Loveland seems to be the pick for the Chargers to me. Number 23, I have him going here to the Packers once more, and that's Jahdae Barron, the corner out of Texas. Now, the thing is, Jahdae Barron, I don't know if he's going to play on the outside. And they need another true outside bona fide corner at that spot. And Jair Alexander could be leaving. And one of the spots Jalen Ramsey's have been rumored to be traded to is the Packers. So that could be interesting. And that could influence if they draft Jahdae Barron or not. We'll have to see. But the thought of Jahdae Barron going to the Packers, here's what interests me about the pick. You look at Jahdae Barron, a guy that very well polished. He can play outside. He can play in the slot, right? He can do both. You look at the corner they signed from the Raiders, Nate Hobbs. Then you look at Keyshawn Nixon, a guy who also has known to play both. While if Jair Alexander stays and you have your number one outside lockdown corner, you have three guys that can rotate around, match up against a bunch of different offenses, match up against a bunch of different receivers. The versatility to use three similar skill set players in Barron, Nixon, and Hobbs, where you can have a lot more versatility because they're all three inherently versatile players that can all do a little bit of everything. So you really have a lot of availability in where you can match up players with match up players to what player, right? To fit your scheme, to fit the offense and fit the look that they're showing you. It just gives you more possibilities to work with your secondary. And I like that idea. And I think their defensive coordinator is smart enough. I can't remember his name for the life of me. Jeff Hafley, I think, is what his name is. But I think it could be really good. I think all three of those corners could be used in very creative ways. And that's an exciting thought for a Green Bay Packers secondary that struggled a lot last year. Number 24, because of the slide and all the players that have went before him, I have Malachi Starks going to the Minnesota Vikings. Again, they need a safety. Malachi Starks is the best available player on the board right now, the best safety in this draft class easily. So it's a match made in heaven, similar to why I had the Texans picking the Vikings picking Nick Amanwari out of South Carolina. But in those mock drafts, Malachi Starks was off the board. But now Malachi Starks is here, and I think if he goes to the Vikings, he's going to start day one and play really, really well and help elevate a secondary that needs a ton of help outside of Harrison Smith and Byron Murphy. So I like the fit. I like the player. It makes perfect sense for these two teams, or the player and the team, to fit together. And Malachi Starks, if you get him at 24, that's a certified steal in my opinion. Number 25, this one has not changed. I have the Texans selecting Tyler Booker, the guard out of Alabama. Again, there's some people that are not really high on Tyler Booker because of his measurables and how it's translated to the NFL compared to other prospects before him. But look, the Texans need offensive line help. They need it anywhere they can get it. They have Cam Robinson at tackle. I can't remember who it was that they signed to play our left guard. So those two positions, while they're not set by any means, they are band-aided, if you will. They have a band-aid on them. And for Tyler Booker, now you can get a premium player at right guard. He's probably going to play right guard in this case. And another guy who is a good culture guy, great leader, which will fit well in D'Amico Ryan's locker room and fit in their culture. So there is that as well to think about. And for a guy like Tyler Booker, I mean, right now, in my opinion, he's the best offensive line prospect available. Maybe you think Josh Simmons is better. You think Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State is better. But to me, Tyler Booker, why not? You need an offensive lineman. You got to take an offensive lineman in right here in the first round. If it's not Tyler Booker, it's got to be somebody else. But right now, to me, I think Tyler Booker is going to be the pick, although it does seem more like he's going to fall out of the first round. We will just have to wait and see. Number 26, I have the Rams selecting Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. This makes a ton of sense to me. While they need a corner, that is very much true. They could probably get one in the late second round. They could trade up into the mid-second round. There's some guys there available like Siobhan Revel. I think Maxwell Harrison, the guy out of Kentucky. I don't think that's his name. If I butchered it, I'm sorry if I'm wrong. And then also Benjamin Morrison, the corner out of Notre Dame, is also going to be on the board somewhere in the middle of around the 40s, 50s, probably. So Emeka Egbuka, while it may not be as big of a need compared to corner, look, Egbuka is a player that is going to be a day one contributor, be reliable. He's not a shifty or quick, agile, speedy slot. He's more of a physical slot. But with Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua on the outside, Emeka Egbuka is going to round out that wide receiver group, and he's going to contribute right away. Not to mention, he is very savvy with his routes, which is really nice with a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, who's a veteran, who really likes receivers who can be on time and be precise. So that's also a plus. And I've mentioned this too, Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua Puka Nacua is a semi-long-term answer, but he would plan to retire at 30. So there's that. And also Devontae Adams is going to retire within a few years. So you need a young receiver that can be there for a long time, that can fit well in the scheme. And I think Emeka Egbuka fits perfectly in the Rams offense and what they're going to be trying to do in 2025 as they try to make another run here for the Super Bowl. Do they make it? Who knows? But that's a conversation for another day. Number 27th overall. Here's a change. I have the Ravens selecting Nick Amenwari, the safety out of South Carolina. Another pick where I had to do more research into what the beat writers and the people close to the team are saying about the draft. A lot of Baltimore Ravens beat writers are saying edge rusher could be the pick, and it very much well could be the pick still. But despite the fact that Kyle Van Noy, Adofe Owe, and there's another edge rusher there, all on expiring contracts. That was my justification for them picking an edge rusher in this draft class. But given how deep this edge rusher class is, they don't necessarily need to pick one right away. And a player or in a position that's got a glaring hole outside of Kyle Hamilton, it's another safety spot. And Nick Amenwari, I think, could fit really well here. A guy that's kind of raw, right? Has all the measurables. I think if you go to a defense like Baltimore, they got good corners, right? They got a good secondary. They got a great defense all around. And Nick Amenwari is not going to be asked to do too much. He's going to get good coaching. And for the edge rusher debate, well, one of these guys, Kyle Van Noy, Dafe Owe, the other guy, I can't remember his name, I'm sorry. One of these guys needs to pop off and play well. And they're going to play well anyways in 2025, right? As a unit where, okay, fill in a more important position of need right now to kind of round out the defense altogether. And that way you're more competitive, ready to compete for a championship more. And wha-bam. I mean, now you got a complete secondary, a complete linebacker spot with Roquan Smith, and now you have a complete defensive line for the most part. Although some people have rumored them to go defensive tackle with Michael Pierce retiring, but they do have Justin Matabuke in there as well. So we will see. But I would not be disappointed if the Ravens selected Nick Amenwari out of South Carolina. Number 28 overall, I have the Lions selecting James Pierce Jr. Again, I love the pick here. They need an edge rusher. I think they're going to go edge rusher for sure. To me, I'm torn between two people. It's either James Pierce or Donovan Ezeruku for the spot for the Lions. And both players make sense. I've made my justification for James Pierce. Probably has the highest ceiling out of any pass rusher in this draft class, not named Abdul Carter. Great speed, was productive at Tennessee, right? Can play all three downs. While he's not very toolsy, he has insane athleticism. And if you're a coach that believes that you can get the most out of him and teach him the fundamentals of being an edge rusher, you could get a slam dunk at the end of the first round, an absolute steal. And then you move to 29, where I have the Commanders selecting Donovan Ezeruku out of Boston College. This one also makes a ton of sense for me because Ezeruku is a guy that has a lot of speed off the edge, very productive player as well, similar to James Pierce, but also he has more tools in his bag. He has more things that he can do, where I think Ezeruku can make a better impact on day one but maybe does not have a high end of a ceiling compared to James Pierce. And both teams, while their championship windows are still open, the Lions, they need a physical freak. They need someone with a lot of upside at that spot. Compared to the Commanders, they have defensive tackles, they have linebackers, they have corners. Get a guy like Donovan Ezeruku, who is still could be a really good football player for you and will be a better contributor for you day one as the Commanders try to compete for a Super Bowl. And then we get to number 30. I have the Bills taking Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. This defensive tackle class is very mixed, right? There's no number one consensus. Well, yes, there is a one consensus. It's Mason Graham. But after that, it's a mixed bag of who people think is the best defensive tackle. Some people think it's Derek Harmon out of Oregon, but some people take knocks on him because he did nothing at Michigan State and then went to Oregon and had one great year, right? Some people are high on Kenneth Grant. But Kenneth Grant, while I have him going to the Bills because he can be a really effective run stuffer in year one, he's a guy who eats blocks for breakfast, right? He's like 6'5", 334 pounds, right? Massive human being, right? Similar to what like T'Vondre Sweat was coming out in Texas, although T'Vondre Sweat was bigger. But he's a guy where he's going to be a run stuffer in year one who has potential upside to become a pass rusher, right? But Kenneth Grant to me just has I like the size more. I like the upside a little bit more. While he's not a prototypical defensive tackle, there's plenty to work with here. And he's also a very willing, forceful player at the line of scrimmage, which I really like and something the Bills will like as well. And then there's a couple other guys in that spot, like Walter Nolan, a little undersized, but he's also very toolsy and athletic for his size. And then another guy is what's his name? I can't remember his name. I'm so sorry. Okay, in that case, I can't mention it because I can't. If I can't remember his name, I'm not going to try. I'm not going to attempt it. I'm sorry. But Kenneth Grant, I think he might be the third best defensive tackle in this draft. Maybe the number 2 behind Mason Graham, but we'll just have to see. It's really an unknown, really much of an unknown of where these defensive tackles are going to go. But I am very confident in saying the Bills are probably going to go defensive tackle in this draft. And in this case, they draft Kenneth Grant, a player that's going to start for them right away, play well, and fits what they're trying to do on defense. Number 31, I have the Chiefs going back to drafting Josh Simmons, a tackle out of Ohio State. Once again, I love this pick, right? Ohio State, national champions, already a top-tier program in college football, so he's going to a top-tier team in the NFL with Kansas City. Sorry, I hate to say it over and over again, but it's true. Anyways, my argument for Josh Simmons making sense still remains the same. If he is healthy, he would have been a top 10 pick in the NFL draft this year. And also, he's got all the technique. I love what he brings to the table. And with Jalen Moore starting at left tackle for the Chiefs as a placeholder, you don't have to start Josh Simmons right away. He can sit and he can learn and get healthy. So by the time he's out there ready to go, bam, you have franchise left tackle potential in Josh Simmons, where if he hits, he's another one of these players that could be an absolute steal at the back end of the NFL draft. And then number 32 overall, I have the Eagles selecting Sheduer Sanders, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M. And quite frankly, if Sheduer Sanders is there, I think the Eagles will run to the podium because Sheduer Sanders, the most athletic edge rusher prospect to ever come out since Myles Garrett. Even maybe a little bit more, they're about the same. That's not the point. Even though that Sheduer Sanders has no college production whatsoever, that's not even close to being reflective of his athletic profile. But there's not very much better situations he could go to, like the Philadelphia Eagles. With the coaching, the team, the roster, there is so many things that Sheduer Sanders going to the Eagles could turn him into an absolute superstar. If you can give him the coaching that he needs to consistently win on the edge, set the edge as a run defender, and really maximize all of that athleticism and really capture that lightning in a bottle that Sheduer Sanders could be, you're talking about an edge rusher that could be even better than James Pierce and Abdul Carter. He has potentially a higher ceiling than even those two guys, right? Arguably. Like if you talk about ceiling, it's Abdul Carter, James Pierce, and then Sheduer Sanders. And Sheduer Sanders, another guy that if he hits, would be a steal at the back of the NFL draft. And I'm going to say that a lot, especially in my final mock draft, because it's notable to talk about. Because How do I explain this properly? The NFL draft, the diversity of talent I've already talked about is not very big, but also the Eagles, it's just the right situation. I said it before, I said it again. It's the right situation for him to go to, right? And you're getting a really high upside player here at 32, right? You didn't have to trade up to get him. So you're picking one of the best players available. And that's really good value. That's really good value when you stick and pick and hit it on a player because you didn't have to move up or down the board to get him. So when you stick and pick and you get a good player, that's really good, especially at the back end of the first round. The Eagles need an edge rusher, need a number one edge rusher. Nolan Smith is good. I don't know if he can be that top tier guy. We'll have to see. But Shamar Stewart has all the tools to make it work in the NFL, and going to Philly is one of the best places he can go. But that is it. That wraps up the mock draft 3.0. I got one more mock draft, which will be my official prediction for the first round of the NFL draft, which will drop next week as the NFL draft approaches here within the week. But for now, that is going to do it for me today, guys. I hope you all have enjoyed. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe button, as it helps the channel out tremendously and helps me continue to grow and spread my football passion to more and more people. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you guys think of this mock draft? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it better than my other two? Who do I have too high? Who do I got too low? Do you still think Sheduer Sanders is going to go in the top 3, or is he going to fall to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Let me know all your thoughts there. Also, make sure you guys share the video on social media or by word of mouth, getting everybody locked in and locked into the Shumake Take. Coming out with great content for you guys every single week. And lastly, make sure to follow me on social media on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter /X, whatever word you want to use there. I'm uploading clips there. Well, not yet, but I've got a bunch of clips ready to shell out here in the next couple of days, so keep an eye out for that. And also, disclaimer, I will be going live for the first round of the NFL draft on Thursday night. So if you want to hang out with me, eat some snacks, play some video games, and talk about the picks as they happen, please join me on draft night next Thursday. I will be going live, so keep your calendars open for that. But with that being said, that is going to do it for me today, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and as always, I will see you all next time.